Chris Bishop.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The inquiry from the Justice and Electoral Committee into the 2014 election was one of the first things I had the privilege of doing after I was elected to Parliament in that election, the 2014 election. And it was a really interesting experience on the committee, and I want to acknowledge all the committee members who have spoken in the debate so far. And it was a collegial committee, and we worked our way through the submissions on that inquiry. And it became very clear, I think, reasonably early on actually in the committee's inquiry that we were going to end up with some form of legislation down the line to make improvements to our electoral system. We consulted widely. We had trips up and down the country, Auckland and Wellington at least. Sir Colin Craig turned up in Auckland, and we were all very worried for a while, but it turned out he just wanted to make a submission about the, I think it was the Broadcasting Act allocation of funds in the end, so it actually turned out to be a bit of a damp squib, but it was fine. And I think what we've produced as a government, sir, out of that parliamentary inquiry is a sensible piece of legislation. 14 changes, as other speakers have made mention, to adapt the Electoral Act to shifts in technology and voter behaviour. I just want to highlight one thing in particular I'm very keen on, sir, and that's the new amendment to prohibit campaigning and the display of campaign material within 10 metres of advanced voting places. And I think it's going to be worth having a discussion about this at Select Committee as to whether or not that 10 metres is the appropriate space, I suppose, around an advanced polling period. We had a sort of a canvass this in the committee and with submitters that it may be impractical in some areas for that 10 metres to be enforced. Particularly in urban centres in which there are advanced polling places, in libraries, for example, or in community centres near main thoroughfares. So we're going to need to have a bit of a discussion, I think, at the Justice and Electoral Committee as to whether or not that's an appropriate space around an advanced polling period. But I've no doubt we can reach some sort of unanimity or at least some consensus on that. Just in closing, sir, I do want to just rebut a couple of the comments from Materia Toure there, who said that this is a real missed opportunity to make improvements to MMP. And she said that the national government promised to make amendments to MMP after the 2014 election. That is a fallacy, sir. That is not correct. What was promised was a review of MMP, which is exactly what happened, and there is no consensus on moving forward on some of the changes that the Greens seem to want to promote. For example, the removal of the electorate seat, what's known as the threshold waiver, the ability for MPs who win an electorate seat to waive the ordinarily enforced 5% threshold. There is no consensus on getting rid of that. And the other point I would make, because the Greens are very concerned about proportionality under MMP, is that it's often forgotten that the electorate threshold waiver helps proportionality. It makes the Parliament more representative, it makes it more democratic, it makes it more proportional. It was more proportional after 1999 when the New Zealand First Party missed out on the 5% waiver and Winston Peters won Tauranga. It was more proportionate after 2002 when Jim Anderton won Wigram. It was more proportionate after 2005 when Peter Dunn came into Parliament with two other colleagues on the back of winning a Haru Belmont, sir. So with those brief remarks, I commend this good bill to the House.